Scruffy. This is a story of long, long ago, before your parents were born, before their parents were born, and even before their grandparents' grandparents were born. It was a time when the old brick house on Mansker Creek, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, was brand new. Can you imagine their excitement? Finally, Adam and his twin sister Elizabeth were going to move into their new home. Also, they were going to see their father and their older brother Peter for the first time in over a year. The father and Peter had moved to the creek ahead of them to build the new house. The twins had traveled a long, long way from back over the mountains in the east, and they had traveled with their mother and their dog, Scruffy. Scruffy was a mutt. They didn't know what kind of dog its mother was, nor its father. They didn't even know where he came from. They had found him as a stray back where they used to live, and they found him all tangled up in a blackberry bush. He must have been chasing a rabbit and got stuck. They managed to rescue him, but what a mess he was. His coat was all tattered by the thorns. "He looks real scruffy," said Elizabeth. "I know, let's call him Scruffy." And they carried the little dog home and pleaded with the mother, "Can we keep him? Can we keep him?" "All right," said the mother, "but you're going to have to look after him yourselves." And they all came to love Scruffy, and he traveled to Mansker Creek with them when they went to meet with their father and Peter. Their father, William Bowen, was a gruff man, hardened by life on the new frontier. "Good to see you, mother," he said, nodding to his wife. "Good to see you too, William," his wife replied. "And good to see that the children are in such fine health. But what is that?" he exclaimed, pointing at Scruffy. "We've no need for the likes of that. It's going to be hard enough getting food for all of us without having to feed that puny thing. Get rid of it." "Please, William," said Mother, touching her husband gently on his arm. "It's their pet. They will look after it, and it'll just eat table scraps." "I'll make a dog house for it," volunteered Peter, "down by the woodshed. It won't bother your father." "Well, all right," said William, "but I won't have it in the house." And so Scruffy got to stay, and they all gradually settled in. Scruffy loved to explore their new surroundings with the twins. They chased up and down the Indian trails in the nearby woods, and went paddling and swimming in the creek, and collected fireflies in a jar and took them home to their mother. One day they came across an Indian boy about their age. He seemed friendly, but they couldn't understand a word he said. Finally, after lots of pointing and making faces and drawing in the air and with a stick on a patch of muddy ground, they were able to understand each other a little. His name was Running Deer, and they became great friends. Running Deer taught them all about the nature of the area, which plants they could touch and which they could not touch, and which berries they could eat and which berries would send them running into the bushes, how to make a fire and a flaming torch of burning twigs and sticks. The Indians used to carry a fire starter with them, a piece of dried buffalo poop, which they set on fire, then wrapped in a wet rhubarb leaf. It would keep burning slowly for hours, and when they wanted to make a fire, they dropped a piece of the burning poop on some dry leaves, and they blew on it, and it would burst into flame. Running Deer also took them to some of his favorite places, including a cave overlooking the creek. It was a fascinating place, and Running Deer lit a torch and led them inside, and he showed them some strange paintings and symbols on the cave wall, stick figures chasing animals. "Those are my people hunting buffalo," he said, "but now the buffalo are moving on, and my tribe will be following them, so I'll have to leave shortly." The children were very sad and said that they would miss him, but Running Deer said he would be back when the buffalo returned. And so Adam and Elizabeth were left to continue their exploration of the cave on their own, and there was a lot to see. Scruffy would come with them to the mouth of the cave, but he would never go inside. He would bark a couple of times and settle down and wait for their return. And when they did return, he would bark and bark in happiness and jump up and down all over the children. One day, Adam and Elizabeth made a torch and set out to explore one of the side branches of the cave. They left a trail of leaves and branches so they could find their way back. The cave was very wet that day as it had been raining very heavily. When they were deep into the cave, Adam slipped and the torch fell from his grasp and fell into a puddle. The flame went out and the cave was plunged into darkness. "Light it again," shrieked Elizabeth, terrified. "I can't," wailed Adam. It's too wet. What shall we do? What shall we do?" But there was nothing that they could do. It was too dark to find their way back. They were lost. And they sat huddled together for a long, long time. Elizabeth finally stopped crying, but was still whimpering softly, with her head buried in Adam's shoulder. Adam had his arm around Elizabeth, but his head hung down in deep despair. And then he raised his head and said, "Quiet, do you hear that?" And they both held their breath, but heard nothing. And then again, "Do you hear that?" "Yes," replied Elizabeth. It sounds like Scruffy." And there it was again. "Scruffy, Scruffy," they yelled. And they heard a bark more clearly now, and then they saw the light of a lantern. No, 2 lanterns. It was their father and Peter come to rescue them. And Scruffy came rushing up, barking madly and jumping all over the twins, who were laughing with joy. William then led his children out of the cave to where their mother was waiting. It was hugs and kisses all around. And then, when they all got back their breath, Mother told the children what had happened. They had been sitting around the kitchen table getting very worried as the twins were late and it was getting dark. Suddenly, Scruffy came running up to the back porch, and he jumped up and down at the back door and barked and barked and barked. And then he would rush off, stop and wait, and then rush back, jumping up and down and barking madly again. "He's trying to tell us something," said Peter. "Maybe the children are in trouble." And they grabbed some lanterns and followed Scruffy, who kept rushing ahead and then back and then ahead again, barking all the time as if to make sure they were following him. And so the children were saved, and they all made it back to the brick house. Peter was carrying Adam on his back, while Elizabeth had her arms clasped tightly around her mother's waist. And Father was carrying Scruffy, and Scruffy was licking Father's ear, and Father was smiling. "You're a grand little dog," Father said. "Children, what did you say his name was?" "Scruffy," they called out. "Scruffy," said Father. "You're going to be the #1 dog in the Bowen household. You're welcome in the kitchen and anywhere you want to go, and I'm going to make you a bed right by the fireplace." And that's how Scruffy came to move into the brick house on Mansker Creek.